meeting, please. And we will try our best. Had so many messages when the meeting taking place, especially John Carroll. Yes, meeting is been scheduled, and the next meeting will be set up. And we will be agreed the date after the meeting. And so, if we carry on, as we said, the agenda, it was the welcome and introduction. Notice it's been already been told that the virtual online meeting is being held in public, and a recording will be available for public future record. A coronavirus update. Is that Monica?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Atwell. So I assume I'm able to start now. Is that correct?
Yes. Well,
That's fine,
according to the
Monica.
agenda,
Can I just ask everybody to turn their microphones off while Monica's speaking, because there's lots of background noise and people can't hear it. Okay, thank you. Carry on, Monica.
It may also be my dodgy laptop, so apologies for that. It tends to make a noise every now and then, so I do apologise if this is me. I cannot actually hear it, but I know sometimes people in the meeting can. I'd like to talk a little bit about the data, what it is telling us about cases in Birmingham and at Handsworth Wood, about testing, about vaccinations, and the release of restrictions that is forthcoming on the 19th of July. So in terms of the data, cases are rising in Birmingham. The 7-day case rate between 26th of June and 2nd of July in Birmingham was at around 279 cases per 100,000 population, compared to 195 cases per 100,000 population for the period for the week before. So that means there's been an increase by 43% from week on week, and the rate is now the 65th highest rate in the UK. In the week ending the 4th of July, cases increased pretty much across all of the age groups, but the largest increase was seen in the 20 to 39 years of age group, which increased by 8%. And in the week ending of 4th of July, cases increased in the Asian, Black and mixed other ethnic groups. The largest increase was seen in the mixed other ethnic group in Birmingham. In terms of the data for Handsworth Wood specifically, for the 7-day period between the 27th of June and the 2nd of July, the ward ranked 27th out of 69 wards for the number of COVID-19 cases, where the first one is the highest and the 69th is the lowest. So it's somewhere in the middle, with approximately 53 reported cases. The ward currently has a rate of 257 cases per 100,000 population, so it's a little bit lower than the overall Birmingham. As of the 29th of June, there were 16 COVID-19 champions in the ward, spreading the public health message and supporting with access to testing and vaccinations. So if I move on to testing, lateral flow tests, everyone is encouraged to do the LFT test twice a week. This hasn't changed in terms of advice from public health, and those can be picked up at pharmacies, supermarkets, ordered online. They are quite widely accessible. Now, obviously, these are advised for individuals who do not have any symptoms, who are well. Now, if people do have symptoms, which are still the same sort of main symptoms, such as high temperature, probably all of those, because they've been repeatedly communicated. A continuous cough, change of taste or smell, people need to still self-isolate and book a PCR test. Appointments can be booked online or by calling 119, or there are some local mass testing sites across Birmingham. So those are the sites where you do not need to book your appointment. You can turn up and get tested. There is still obviously advices in place around the need to isolate until test results are back, and if they are positive, the isolation needs to continue. And if you receive a negative test result, then obviously normal activity can be resumed. If test is positive, then people must isolate for 10 days, with day 1 being either the first day of symptoms or the test date. In terms of vaccinations, uptake in Birmingham, this is currently around sort of 90%. It sort of fluctuates for different age groups, and for the clinically extremely vulnerable individuals, where unfortunately the rate is a little bit lower. It's 83%. We would like to see it increased really to 100% if we can. In terms of Handsworth Wood, those rates are very similar to the overall Birmingham, slightly lower by about between 2 to 4% for those who are 75 and 70 years of age and over. For those who are clinically extremely vulnerable, the rates are very similar. And in terms of the younger age groups, again, slightly lower take up of vaccinations within the ward. So promoting the message to vaccinate is something that is really important. All adults over 18 years of age can now get vaccinated, and we encourage them to do that. And if you have been offered your vaccine already but changed your mind, you can contact your GP to book in. There is no restrictions on when and how you get your vaccination. Second dose is now obviously being offered after 8 weeks. So you may be able to bring your vaccination, the second jab, forward. And you can book your vaccination online as well. There are some local vaccination sites that are mobile sites, so those change, and different dates and different venues are being put up on a rota basis across Birmingham. And one at the Church of God of Prophecy in Park Lane for Handsworth Wood is opening tomorrow, and it will be open also on Friday between 11 and 6 o'clock, so 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. This will be a Pfizer vaccination centre. And as we all have heard, the restrictions are being lifted on the 19th of July. This does not change the risks that we're still facing because of COVID. as you have heard, the number of infections is rising, Delta being the dominant variant, and precaution is advised in terms of particularly when people are likely to get exposed in not so well ventilated or crowded areas. But it will be from the 19th of July a matter of personal choice of how people are trying to keep themselves and those who they come into contact with safe. So that's all from me. I'm not sure whether there are any questions.
Did anybody have a question?
Shall I leave Leslie to manage the queue?
Yeah, you have a question from, is it Susan? Do you want to put your mic on, Susan? That's it. We can hear you.
Sorry, yeah, just one quick question. Are any of the COVID champions working with the exempt properties? Because many of them, it's a very transient community and they may not be registered with doctors, and they're in multi-occupancy houses, obviously, which are spreaders.
I will pass that question to the coordinators of the COVID champions to find out whether specifically they're working with the exempt accommodation, but I know they're working in the areas with the community, full stop. So may as well be some activity within those households. But I'll ask the specific question and try to get the answer for you from the coordinators of the COVID champions. It's a really good point.
Thank you.
Did anybody else have a question, please? If not, Monica, can you email me with your contact number? I have some issues which I will email you with your telephone number and email, please. And the other thing is it a possibility you can provide the information where, let me start again, as how the councillor could help in these issues. And I'm willing to help. I'm doing the other way around, myself. But from the city side, if you provide the information, what can be done, I can provide this information by visiting or by talking to the people or WhatsApp. To the Gurdwaras and to the temple around, in Birmingham whole. And I'm sure in my ward or some surrounding neighboring the mosque as well, So we as a community, we like to be put a nice message, to the people, how they can manage, in this hard time. I know the place of worship, the people like to go there, but somehow they find difficulty or they found themselves positive. I don't know, either in the buses or not. In the public transport, my second question, in public transport, either buses or the local train, are they safe to travel or what?
The risks are there. So whenever you've got a crowd, wherever you've got people in close proximity from each other, the risks haven't gone away. In fact, probably they've increased with the transmission of the Delta variant. It is 1.6 times more transmissible than the other variants. So the risks are really high. The government has taken a stance of making it a personal choice whether people wear masks or whether they kind of keep a distance from each other, from others, but it would be wise if we are going into those enclosed spaces that are not particularly well ventilated, or that if we are in a crowded spaces that we do wear closed spaces that we do wear masks, because the risks are still quite high. the number of hospitalizations started to rise as well. It's not you know, as high obviously as it has been in previous waves, because it demonstrates that the vaccinations are having an impact. They are working. So the key message that we do have for all, and a request and an encouragement, is to get vaccinated. If there are medical issues that people might be worried about and are hesitant about the vaccine, they can speak to their GP, and more appropriate vaccination can be selected. But I think vaccination is the key. It does keep the hospitalizations lower, and it does reduce significantly the risks of severe illness and death.
Monica, as I requested, send me the information which is we can circulate, you know. The other thing is I'd like to make a request, and last meeting I did it again. You know, then a shopping center, especially on main road, I won't name the road, but I seen, I move around in Birmingham and neighboring. And a lot of, you know, these shops, you know, the people not bothering, even those are serving, they are not bothering to wear the mask. We know it's going to change something in 19th, but again, distance, social distance, and not being, you know, been keeping, you know, the way they should be. So I think the COVID marshal, you know, they need to take some sort of responsibility and some action. And I know they've seen it around, but maybe they don't want to be faced with the customer or to the business people, you know, owners. But we have to be take, I think, a tough action to help the other people, you know. So that kind of thing, they, you know, in you know, especially in inner city, you know, that is happening. I witnessed myself, you know, I've seen it, and I keep telling the people differently, phoning around. But I think officially, if the council, you know, from the officer, that would be much better to help.
If I can comment on that point, please. So obviously wearing a mask and social distancing until 19th of July remains a law, and there is enforcement in place if that law is not being complied with. COVID marshals, we don't have an awful lot of them, so they cannot be everywhere and know everything. But if individuals within the community are particularly concerned about any you know, bad practice and actually breaking the law by you know, whether it's shopkeepers or other venues, then we've got a whistleblowing procedure. On the council's website, there is a whistleblowing page where anonymously reports can be made, and they will be investigated by environmental health colleagues, and COVID marshals may be deployed to some areas. But I would suggest that those reports are made via the council's website.
Can you send that link, please? Anyway, before you go, I think we got another item as well.
Councillor, we've got two more questions.
Okay, hold on. You can have a question, but
okay.
I think I will speak to my colleague and the councillors as well. But myself and Councillor Tuner, we're taking responsibility in our ward where the shopping area. We visit to the shop and you know, just talk to them, and they're listening. So that do work. I hope the other councillor and their board, they should do that as well. You know, that be a great help. Thank you. Any other question if anybody have on this side?
Yes, we've got Nina with a hand up, and then we've got Mr. Saunders with his hand up. So if Nina can go first.
Yeah, I think I put it in the chat box as well. About appointments with your GPs. Are they appointments face to face now, or is it still consultations?
I will not be able to answer fully that question. I suppose it's a mixture of both, depending on what the appointments are for. So if the they usually start through a phone call, but if the doctor decides that they need to see you, then the appointment will be made. But I think you need to speak to your practice about that.
Right, so it's not open yet at the moment. So it's up to the individual surgeries then.
No, it's not up to the individual surgeries. There is kind of, it would be the matter of, how this is being approached. But a lot of consultations, I suppose there's a COVID legacy around that, because everything has been done digitally or over the phone, almost everything over the past few months. But you when you normally call, you can be called back by the doctor, and sometimes the telephone consultation is sufficient, but sometimes it isn't, in which case the appointment will be made. But I could not specifically talk for each individual practice. So if there are any issues, I can leave some contact details for Leslie and Councillor Atwell of how to raise them with the primary care.
Okay.
Okay, we've got another question. We've got a question from Mr. Saunders and then one from Susan.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you. I may be speaking at the wrong time in the meeting, but I'm here on behalf of a friend who lives in Landgate Road. There's a possible problem with neighbours in a rented house, and there appears to be maybe 10 people living there, house of multiple occupation. And there's a lot of disturbance, noise and behavioural problems from that property. Police have been informed and various councillors, but nothing seems to happen. I don't know if I'm speaking at the right moment in this meeting. Can you advise me?
That's okay, no problem. Point one noted. The police, in our meeting, I think they will take care of it. Or if you send the information, either myself or Councillor Cooner, then we will take on board.
I think there has been some communication to one of the councillors, but I'm not quite sure.
Somebody, if they can redo it, please.
It's Inspector Nick Hill here, Councillor. Do you want me to put my details in the bottom? And Ron, if you want to send me those details, I'll pick it up and have a look to see what action we've taken there so far and what we need to do in the future. So I'll put my details down there for you, Mr. Saunders. Okay.
It's Ray. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, Ray.
I said my name is Ray. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've got one more question on this topic, and that's from Susan. If you'd like to put your microphone on, Susan, and ask the question.
Still there, Susan?
I think she must be having internet problems. If she.
Okay. Can we move on to the policing inspector, Nick Hill?
Thank you, Councillor. I think this is the first one of your meetings I've been to, so I'll introduce myself first. And I'm looking around the group and I can see John, Anne, and I think Helen I've obviously spoken to before, so it's nice to see you all again. But I'm Nick Hill. I'm the constituency inspector for Perry Barr. I've been here about 4 or 5 months now. Really enjoyed the start and kind of especially enjoyed the interaction with lots of different kind of active community members. And give you an update first and foremost in relation to the Handsworth Wood ward and some of the excellent work that's been going on. And I think before I do that, it'd be remiss of me to not thank Sergeant Dominic McGrath, who has since moved on from the area, but he was the local sergeant, and I know he had been here for 2 or 3 years, had really done some excellent work and made some excellent progress in certain areas, in particularly Rookery Road. I've got Sergeant Jason Pinchers, who's the new sergeant, and he's in the meeting as well, so I'll introduce him in a bit. But I just really wanted to talk to the group about some of the strands of work that we're doing at the moment. For me, our work around connect and build is really important, because I think at times it's really difficult for the local community to speak to the police. So for me, we've been really active in terms of trying to to really engage the communities in terms of street watch, business watch. I know some people have been talking about some speed watches as well, and I've had some kind of really lively conversations with people around HMOs and exempt accommodation and some of the real frustrations around those. And I think as a police service, we can be a lot better in terms of targeting some of the vulnerabilities at those addresses. I'm not even going to start kind of counting how many HMOs and exempt accommodations there are, because I think everybody here is aware that there's a lot. We have a lot of responsible providers, and there's somewhere we need to step up and do a little bit more. Some of the work that Jason's been doing over the past 2 or 3 weeks around on the roads. So they've ran a number of operations involving our partner agencies where we've taken a lot of vehicles off the road. A lot of vehicles have been seized for no insurance, and arrests have been made in relation to those operations as well. So some really good work going on there. But I'm quite conscious that I really want to kind of listen to what people in this forum is important to them. So I don't really want to kind of impose my agenda on those, but certainly people here who have any ideas in relation to how they would like us to kind of police as the local neighbourhood constituency, I'd be really kind of willing to listen to those ideas and help to engage. But I think if I hand over to Jason, he can perhaps go into a little bit more detail in relation to some of the kind of activities he's been focusing on. And please bear in mind, I think Jason's only been with us for a few weeks, but I've been really impressed with how hard he's been working. But I think this will be his first board meeting with you as well. But thank you for the time, and I'll put my details in there as well. So Ray, you can forward me those details. And if anybody else thinks that they need to raise, then please do. So just whilst Jason's speaking, I'll copy my details into the bottom. But really lovely to see some of the familiar faces there and some new faces as well. So thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, sir. Please, again, I know you said you will put the detail. If you email me, please, your contact number and the email, and we will keep in touch with some different issues. Thank you. Is any question anybody have to the police?
Councillor, sorry, let me introduce myself to everybody as well. So obviously I'm Sergeant Jason Pinches. I've been with the team now for just over a month. So I'm still very much learning the area, but I think I'm getting to grips with everything. It's a new role for me. I've not done neighbourhood policing before, but I'm really keen to get stuck into it and really deal with the matters that matter to the community the most. So if anybody, as my inspector says, wants to raise anything with me, now's the opportunity.
Councillor Ampel, I've got a question. Can I ask a question, please? Councillor Kuna.
Yes.
Thank you. Hi, both Nick. I just wanted to discuss with you. So I'd been trying to set up a meeting with Dominic and the community safety team regarding issues that we're having at Wood End, regular antisocial behaviour and fly tipping and stuff. I know fly tipping falls under the remit of the council, but I was looking to try and look at for a joint up approach to how we deal with it. And we had a joint up approach last year, and that seemed to have a really positive impact. So firstly, welcome to the area. I know we've not met, but it'd be good if you could sort out a meeting with yourself and Amanda, I've forgotten her surname now, from the community safety team, to try and look at the issues that we're having there, which are reoccurring issues. So I'm looking to set up a joint meeting with yourselves, the councillors, someone from the Perry Barr Depot, and I did request for John O'Shea, the cabinet member, to attend as well. So if that's something that we can look at going forward, because I know whilst we were starting the conversations, trying to set the meeting up, Dominic then notified me that he was leaving. So it'd be good if we touch base on those issues.
Yeah, by all means, drop me an email and we'll sort something out regards to that. I'm aware of the issues that are happening in Wood End. We have been actively patrolling the area, but nothing's really come to light to me until today, really, because obviously not being able to speak to everybody. But if you can email me and we'll sort out some sort of meeting so we can discuss the issues that are taking place down there and develop a working strategy towards that.
Thank you. And also, it looks like we've not managed to, we did request to get officers from housing to look at the exempt accommodation issues, because we've got a lot of issues in our area. And I think Mr. Saunders is also raising something similar about it in his like, you know, on Landgate Road for one of his friends or neighbours. And so is there anything that you're able to update us in terms of from a police perspective? I know the council also have a duty, and I was trying to get officers to come and give us an update, because we have got officers which have been funded specifically to look at the issues we're having with exempt accommodation. And I know work is being carried out, so I was looking to try and get an update of what's going on in Handsworth Wood. Unfortunately, it looks like we've not been able to get anyone attending today, so we will try and get them to the next meeting. But is there anything you can give in way by means of an update from the police at all in terms of the issues that we're experiencing in the area?
Yeah, I think it's a case of work is just constantly ongoing. As we become aware of exempt accommodation, which is causing the issues, we're trying to arrange joint visits. I've got an officer with us who's kind of specialising in the exempt accommodation and HMOs at the minute. So as we start becoming more aware of the issues, we can start arranging joint visits to try and tackle those sort of issues. Obviously, some of it does lie with the council, but again, I think if we have a joint approach towards it, we can tackle it from a number of different directions.
I think that's definitely the way forward, if you do take a joint up approach, because obviously it's having a massive impact on the neighbours and the residents living in the vicinity. And we've got a couple of hotspots within the ward where we've got intense HMOs and exempt accommodation. So if we could look at those issues and maybe have a joint up meeting, it would be really good. Yeah,
definitely. I think as we move forward, that'll be something that I'll look to look at a lot more in depth.
Thank you very much, Jace.
Could I just come in as well, Council? Just something kind of worth raising there. Certainly in terms of looking at our kind of data and our crime patterns, we kind of chalk up our top 50 demand locations. So certainly whenever we get a call in relation to a specific property, then that will flag up. So when I run a search, it will show exactly where those top 10 demand generators are, or however many I want to look at. And certainly if we start looking at some of those and they're showing as exempt or HMO accommodation, then if we can link that to criminality, quite often it might be one or maybe two individuals from that address that are causing the issues. So sometimes it might be easier for us to pursue a criminal matter against one or two individuals who are causing the harm from the HMO, rather than looking at the HMO or exempt accommodation ourselves. And that's something that we're getting better at in terms of understanding our data. And actually, we've had a couple of really positive results, albeit not in Handsworth Wood, but in Lascelles in the neighbouring ward, where we've managed to do that. And I'd like to replicate that work over here. But obviously, Jason's only been here 4 weeks so far, so he's yeah. But we're definitely working towards that.
Yeah, so I think the reason it's particularly important is because a few years ago we had a HMO that was badly managed, and then the same landlord tried to put a HMO in the local area, and because there was reports to the police in regards to the issues that residents locally and also the residents within the HMOs were experiencing, that the reports to the police were able to be used to stop him opening a second HMO. So that's why I think the joint up working approach is really important. And I can see that Anne saying that Somerset Road is also an issue. And yes, I know, Anne, we've got quite a lot of issues on Somerset Road as well. So we've got Endwood Court, we've got, you know, Stockwell, Windermere, all those roads around there, Oxhill Road. So there's a few hotspots, like I said, within the area. So maybe we can have a joint up meeting with residents, police and the council and see how we can all work together on it.
Perfect. So yeah, more than happy to support that. Can I just encourage everybody as well that every time that they call, even if action's not taken then that kind of forms part of our data. So yes, people need to phone for us to be made aware of it, because if people just are scared to pick up the phone, then it won't get logged. So if it's showing as a high demand generator, then it will really pick up on our systems far quicker. So I can't emphasize how important that is, because we do check that, and we are influenced by where our greatest calls are.
Nick, can I just ask, so one of the concerns that local residents have when they pick up the phone to the police is if they've got a neighbour who's causing distress, they don't want to be named. So can you give a reassurance to residents that if they rang and they were to report something, that their details will remain anonymous and not be told, that the perpetrators wouldn't be told who's rang and reported the issues?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So obviously there's different ways to contact us. There's either the web chat, the 101, which is the non-emergency number, which will probably be picked up by the neighbourhood team when they're next on duty, or 999, depending on the call. But absolutely, the call be kind of treated with the strictest of confidence. Obviously, people need to be aware, depending what they're reporting. The people who are reporting may be aware of where that call's come from, regardless. So I can't kind of just sit here and say people will definitely not know where that's come from, because sometimes it's quite clear. But certainly the police will treat that call in the strictest of confidence. Of course we will.
Thank you. There's quite a few people that have got their hands up, so I'm going to just, yeah, thank you very much for the update, both of you. Councillor Attfield, there's quite a few people with their hands up.
Can I come in quickly?
So,
Yeah.
Mr. Saunders, do you want to come in?
Just quickly, thank you, Nick. I was writing down I didn't catch the name of the colleague of yours that's new, because I think he may have made contact with my friend. What was his name?
Yeah, it's Sergeant Jason Pinches.
Sergeant Jason. Yeah. Okay. Apparently, you might have spoken to her on Sunday or thereabouts over the weekend last.
It wouldn't have been myself because we weren't on duty over the weekend.
Okay.
But
It's one of your colleagues. Anyway.
Somebody may well have picked up the email in my absence.
Okay. So how do we sort of follow through? Is it 111 or 101? Sorry.
It depends on whether she was given any reference numbers. Do you know if she's got a reference number or anything?
Maybe. She's a school teacher, so that's why I'm here on her behalf. She's at work.
Okay. What was she actually reporting? It's not too sensitive, mind.
Well, noise, very much abusive behaviour, which I've witnessed.
Okay. If she's got a log number or a crime reference number, she can call 101 and quote that, and she should get an update from that.
Okay, and also the fact that there appears to be, it's a rented property, but it appears to be a house of multiple occupancy, as you say, but the landlord doesn't seem to recognise that. I don't know if that's, yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Does anybody else have a question on this matter, on the policing?
Yeah, John Tyrrell, do you want to raise your question? John?
Yep.
John Terrell.
To unmute myself. Yes, thanks very much. Yeah, I very much appreciate the work that is being done around HMOs. We've had concerns, and particularly, we discussed this Handsworth Wood Residents Association. We've been in touch with the officers, and Dominic particularly was very active in dealing with things. But the point I want to really make is that we're getting the situation that you're dealing with problems one by one. But there was a big report in the Observer over the weekend, and or way back a week. But I mean, it's clear that there are too many properties coming into use in the area. They're still getting things from the planning department with large numbers, and each time it has to be dealt with. Endwood Court's example, and so on. So we've certainly taken it back to planning, but it's too difficult for officers, both in the police and the council, to deal with unless this is brought down. I know the cabinet member, Sharon Thompson, there's a meeting later this week on Thursday looking at the exempt properties, and one or two agencies have said, look, we're not going to put any more into areas where there are already high numbers, like Handsworth and Handsworth Wood. So I don't know, what the police, I know they're dealing with things one at a time, in the way just described, but this is just getting too much. So we're looking for solutions which are more strategic than just having to try and deal with things like firefighting. What are your feelings about this? But we're trying to work together, obviously, as members of the community, and offering our support and to link with you. It's very welcome what you've been saying about that.
I think you've raised some, yeah, I think you've probably raised the same frustrations that everybody on this call's raising, John. I read and I read some of those articles, and I certainly know that our senior officer on Birmingham West, Mr. Graham's actually had an article printed in the paper where he's expressed those exact same views that actually as a police service, it's really hard for us to keep up with demand around HMO and exempt accommodations, because it's just not something that we've had to deal with in the past, but now obviously with a housing shortage and kind of an awful lot of vulnerable people being housed sometimes in accommodation which isn't correct, or sometimes being housed together, which is going to cause issues when you've got lots of different single people all living inside the same household with different problems. And if they're not cared for in the proper way, or if the right provision is not put in place, then everybody in this room is aware of some of those issues that it can raise. From a local neighbourhood perspective, which is all I can control, and I can't pretend I can control it beyond that. All I can do is kind of look at those examples which are causing us the greatest harm, because best will in the world, I'd love to have that magic wand and wave it and solve that problem. But if I was to say that, I'd be misleading you. So as a local policing team, what we can do is address those properties that are causing us the greatest harm. And I'm really relying, myself and Jason, on yourself and the local community to let us know which those properties are.
Thank you.
Any
Can I?
any other question?
Nina has a hand up, councillor.
Yeah, it's nice to, I mean, I've already spoken to you, Jason, so it's nice to see you there today as well. Again, my issue is, as I've sent you emails as well regarding the pavement parking. It's especially on Friary Road. I don't think anybody's listening to that bit by the allotment, but there's two houses, 17 and 19. It seems to block that all the time. I know you're doing very well with, keeping an eye on Larch Avenue and Oxford Road and Friary Gardens and Friary Road. Thank you for all that. And we want to do Street Watch. I'm part of the Street Watch team anyway. So perhaps we can, we used to get a monthly update from PCSOs before as to what's happened and things like that. Maybe useful that we will continue with that, our communication. So, that we have a link to have emails with those PCSOs. So that would be useful for us. Thank you.
Yeah, Nina, I think it's as I've mentioned to you, really. I'm quite short with PCSOs at the minute, so we're just trying to manage as we can until people start returning to work, and I think that might be the case as we move out of the COVID restrictions. So certainly, as we come out of COVID and everybody starts returning to work properly, hopefully we can start introducing those sort of updates again.
Did anybody else have any question? If not, lastly, I'd like to request to the police, if you can look into it. I know it's been raised many times. There was a fire or a bonfire on upland allotments, and antisocial behavior, the people, and sandball allotment as well. So if the police can keep your eye on it, please, somehow. And we need to be sort that out, because a lot of people are suffering, especially when the smoke comes to the, the local, the people living in, which is Oxford Road and the Priory Road and the other surrounding area. When the smokes come, it affecting everybody, even the neighboring allotment as well. Some people making a mistake, maybe just for a fun, and there is some damages I seen myself. So I think, thank you very much, officers, to attending the meeting, and keep in touch. And yes, I received the information from Sergeant, and I will pass on you the information I have to deal with. Can we move on to the agenda, which is Periwa development and travel impact?
Hi there.
Hi.
That's myself. I am Julieta, and I work for Birmingham City Council on the comms team for the Peribar Regeneration Programme. Councillor Cooner kindly invited me over to kind of give a brief update on what is going on in the area and how it affects you, what we do to kind of mitigate against that, and what's coming up. So hopefully you can all hear me okay. Just let me know if you can. What I've done is I prepared a very short presentation. It's just very short, nothing to worry about. It's not going to be long and boring, very short. And hopefully as I go through that, that will help answer the questions that no doubt you have. And it will allow, and hopefully we'll have time at the end I can help with any questions that you may have. So if everyone's okay, I'll just quickly get this up and share my screen and we can go through it quickly. Give me a second.
Dr. Kunder, can you explore a bit?
Sorry, what
I'm sorry, Councillor?
Sorry, Councillor Atwell, I didn't catch that.
I think you raised this question with keeping you moving through to the disruption Paribar regeneration.
Yes, so I've had a number of complaints from local residents regarding the traffic congestion going to Paribar One Stop and also down the Hampstead Hill. I know the one down Hampstead Hill is partly due down to the development that's happening, which was formerly Sainsbury's, which I believe is now going to be Lidl. But I think it would be good for us to get an update on the disruption and highways issues that we're having in our area. And that's why I asked Giulietta to come to the meeting and give us an update and maybe look at how we can try and resolve the issues that local residents are experiencing, because it's a bit of a nightmare at the moment.
If I can add on to it, yes, it is the Hampstead Hill, Handsworth Road. You know, this is the main from the Hockley Bridge is coming due to the Paribar that work, development. That's, you know, the people, because I have a complaint and lot of messages and phone call and the emails from Scott Army, you know, when they coming rather than they go straight through to the Paribar, they choose the route from Old Bolsall Road, Hampstead Hill, Handsworth Border Road, then to the city. So I don't know how the officer can help in it, and we like to see something happen because it's too congested. You know, I caught up, every day myself and coming in and going out as well. Officer, can you? Hello?
Hi, Councillor Atwell. Yeah, I mean, what what I would be going through the presentation. I mean, maybe this isn't the right time to be doing presentation, but what I can put across just now is, unfortunately, this is the worst period for construction at this moment. So the disruption is at its peak, and I know that's not comforting to anyone in any way, shape, or form. But what is the kind of light at the end of the tunnel is this will end sooner rather than later. So by the end of the summer, beginning of autumn, the major construction works on, say, the A34 will start to ease. And what will happen is some of the lane closures will ease up, which will allow more through traffic to get through easier. Journey times will improve. So whilst at the moment the two kind of conflicting works that are going on, which is at the A34 works right on Bar and the station closure with the lane closure right in front of the station, those two are the two basically main areas that are causing the issues in your area in Handsworth. So whilst at the moment that is going to continue, what I can assure you is that we do, I'm trying to think how to phrase this, we do lots of work every day in order to see what's happening on the network. We adjust the signalling throughout in order to make sure that we can kind of, if there's disruption on the southbound, then we try and make traffic lights go longer in order to accommodate that, and vice versa. We try and accommodate wherever we see on the network through our various avenues. So for instance, we have the regional traffic control centre that we watch things in live time. That allows, sorry, I'm just going to come out of this, that way I can put my camera up and you can see as I'm talking. Give me two seconds. So whilst we whilst we watch that in live time, we also adjust it in live time. So you can see that we adjust the messaging throughout the area. We try and adjust the signalling. We try and take off lane closures where we can. But the reason obviously for the lane closures is obviously to make everything safe for both yourselves and the workers who are there. So there are in some cases lane closures that will just have to remain, I'm afraid. There we go, I can hopefully turn my camera on now. Sorry, I'll just take that off. So if you give me just 2 seconds, I'll just try and get my camera. Oh, there we go. Where was I? Yes, so whilst at the moment, this is the worst period in terms of yourselves for the inconvenience from the disruption, it will, I can assure you, it will ease up towards the end of the summer, beginning of autumn. This is the worst period, I know, and I am truly sorry that this is going on, but if you could just bear with me, it will come to an end and you will see an easing of this towards the end of the summer, beginning of autumn. Once things start, once the major works for some of the projects do start to lift a bit. I don't know if that maybe Anne.
Officer, can I suggest something? You know, the traffic, rather than they go to the ferry bar, just they choose the route if they want to go to Walsall or if they want to go to the Sutton Coldfield, you know, that portion. And from Hockley flyover, that if the traffic can partly diverted, you know, to the 6-way where the Lozels are, you know, the Lozels and Bella Road, you know, they are joining there, and they can go to A34 or partly from the Alexandra Stadium, and partly they can go through the Beaches Road, I think, or Beaches Close, I think Beaches Road, and they can go through to the Great War to the Sutton Coldfield, and partly, you know, they can go through. We can spread the traffic differently rather than only, you know, the one road from Hockley flyover on junction of the Soho Hill and, you know, the Hockley flyover, and then Hampstead Road, then Handsworth Board Road, then Hampstead Hill, Old Walsall Road, all the traffic coming through to there. But if somehow our traffic system, they can partly spread the, you know, the traffic, you know, different way, different roads that people can go through. Sign can be done. If you want to go to the Sutton Coldfield, please take this road. That's easy. If going to Walsall, it's a different, or the Great Bar, it's a different. So we can spread these all the traffic.
Yeah,
I mean, able to help. I may be able to help if any officer want to discuss. I'm open to discuss.
Yeah, certainly. I can take that back to our respective heads of the teams who are managing the traffic programme. But we do advise people to check apps before they leave, you know, to visit the Transport for West Midlands website. So that tells you what's happening at that moment and what is the best route to get around that, to get from A to B. So hopefully that, you know, if people are concerned about the route that they're about to go on and what length of time that's going to take, this app would certainly, the website will certainly be able to advise on that. But I can certainly take back your suggestion to the team and see if we can accommodate any of that and come back to you.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Can I?
Did anybody else have any question, please?
Yeah, I've got a question, if that's okay, Councillor. Hi, Julietta. Thank you. Thanks for the well, what was going to be a presentation.
Yeah, we've skipped it. We've went right on to the questions.
Yeah,
that's fine. We'll keep it going.
You know, I think we all knew it was going to be a bit of a nightmare, but I don't think people envisaged it would be so problematic even during the middle part of the day. I mean, it's like your worst possible Friday afternoon if there was a car broken down on the underpass. You know, it's like that all of the time if you're trying to get from Handsworth Woodward along Wellington Road and into the roundabout at the end of Wellington Road. It is absolutely awful. And if you, I mean, are you doing any pollution monitoring in that part of Birmingham? Because it's really nasty when if you're trying to walk up that area. You can smell the exhaust fumes. That's my first question, but I've got a second question as well.
Sure.
So my question is that, you know, when you're using that area quite a lot, as I am, you do, I know you guys do live monitoring and adjust the sequencing of the traffic lights, but if you are driving, let's say from, you know, Oscott, Sutton Coldfield area down Aldridge Road, you are never queuing. But if you're driving northwards, you are always queuing. And I can't believe I've just got unlucky so that I'm always queue one direction and then lucky that I never queue the other direction. So I don't think the sequencing can be managing the traffic flow as well as you're saying.
I mean, I can certainly look into that for what the reason is for why one direction is particularly bad versus the other. I think it is just due to, I mean, off the top of my head, I think it is something to do with how the closures are and what side of the road they're on. But I can certainly look into that to get the kind of specific detail as to why, because I'm not, as I'm not an engineer, I don't know the specifics, so I don't want to say
okay, well, you
for
should.
sure.
There are methods of, excuse me, a bit of an anorak on this subject from previously working in the department. There are ways that you monitor the waiting time and the traffic flow in each direction in terms of traffic lights, and you should be able to monitor the speed and the length of queuing down Aldridge Road and down the Old Walsall Road compared to monitoring coming up the Birchfield Road and also coming down Wellington Road. And what I'd request, Chair, if that's okay, if we ask the officer to bring back an analysis of the queuing to the next forum meeting, just to see what has been done, perhaps to alleviate some of the problems. And my final request, Julietta, would be, it would be very helpful if there could be a timetable for the completion of the works, so that residents in, you know, not just our ward, but, you know, in Birchfield and Aston, the other people who are really, really suffering, knew that, you know, it was certain roadworks were due to be completed, let's say at the end of August, certain things were going to be completed by the end of October. So at least we had, and we knew when some of these things might be alleviated.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you kind of a ballpark. I mean, the major works in the A34. So, for instance, on the weekend of the 16th, for example, we have the next kind of major road work, the major closure that will take place. That'll probably be, I mean, I don't want to say for sure, but at the moment that should be the last big one for the A34. And that will be the closure of the Birchfield Island in order to put the beams in and then build up. So there should be communication. You should have kind of started to see communication about that coming out, because that will affect the weekend of the 16th.
Locally about that.
Okay, I mean, I can certainly forward on things. I mean, there should be a big push about that during this week, but we certainly, that'll be coming up. Towards the end of August, beginning of summer, the A34 works in particular will ease. And by the end of the year, the A34 highways works should be completed. A lot of the projects will be finished at the beginning of next year, maybe around about the end of winter, beginning of spring. So there will be, there is kind of set kind of key deadlines that we have to meet in order to make the games when they commence in the summer next year. So obviously we have this very hard deadline, and in the meantime we have things that will be coming to an end as the year goes on, but certainly towards the end of summer you will see a difference. I don't know if that provides.
That wasn't the kind of detail I was looking for. I was looking for, you know, specific bits of the engineering works on particular dates. You know, all residents around here, we know the different areas. So if you know, just being given vague dates like by the end of the summer things will be a bit easier, doesn't really give us the confidence which we want from you know, from officers, that this is the section that will be ready by this date. This is the section that would be ready by that date. That's the kind of communication that I think would at least alleviate some of the stress that residents are feeling.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I can, we can never give out a hard date on that, just because things can be delayed due to things as simple as weather. So we don't want to ever, you know, put out a date that we can't.
I'm sorry, Julietta. This is, you know, I think you're being patronising. Of course, we know that there's some minor slippage, but there are target dates which the department have, and just sharing those target dates with obviously caveats saying, you know, things may change slightly, but having those target dates means that people know whether, you know, something at the top end of the roadworks is going to be completed 1 month and something at the bottom end is going to be completed 3 months later. You know, we as residents have absolutely no idea what the scheme of works is and when there might be complete road closures, when there might be roads being opened up. We are really in the dark around this. And in the past, there's been very good communication from the department. You know, there used to be times when you used to close the tunnels in the city centre. There was really good communication about when that would happen and when that would end. And those dates were really precisely followed by the department. You know, it's generally a really good department, but there seems to be a lack of communication, which is really unsatisfactory.
Okay, I can certainly take that back and see if we can do better.
Can I interrupt? Officer from the city, I totally agree with the change. And we know, you know, wherever the road works are, they must have the schedule of work and they must have a program of the work, when it's starting, when it's going to be finished. And they always, there is a notice on, you know, on the road and the public moving there rather than, you know, they contacting the local councillor and some other, the people get fed up. At least they can read the notice, you know, when it's going to be end. So at least the contractor must have a date when they have a contract, you know, given to them, and they must have signed the, you know, the starting date and the finishing date. And especially when we're saying Hampstead Hill, and that's where the ladder being built, you know, and before that bridge, you know, the Rocky Lane Bridge. And that end and the A34 where the junction is, you know, the Bolsall Road, old Bolsall Road, and that A34. And there is a road work, but at least even the Scott Arm, and they must have a date. We want to know the dates. And this is, I'm sorry to say that this is some sort of a failure of our department. You know, they are unable to provide us this information either knowingly or unknowingly. And we want to know as a local councillor and the local residents. Please, officer.
Okay. I would say that what we can do is that the individual projects have updates that they send out, so they can send you out regular updates on what works they're doing, and they give you the breakdown so that you are more informed. I can certainly provide the web pages for that so that you can register. In terms of the specific deadlines, I can certainly see what I can gather together to bring to the next meeting, and that hopefully will help alleviate the concerns that you guys obviously have.
We need, before the meeting, if can't be, you know, the end of the week or next week, at least we can let our residents to know what's happening, when it's going to be end. And we are answerable local, and the people keep asking, accusing us, you know, we are not providing them the information. I think the major people are in the meeting, they are listening, and they have their own organization. That's where we can spread the message when it's going to be end, when that project will be finished. We want to know, as the Jane said previously, whatever even the minor work, we did had it, dates there, when it's going to be start and when it's going to be finished, but not now. Why?
Could I just come in? Do you mind if I just come in here? There are two people with their hands up.
Yes,
And could I just ask that we try and, you know, keep a polite tone? We are very frustrated, but we also appreciate you're just the officer appearing now, and some of this you'll have to take back. So would you mind if because I've had my hand up so long, it's beginning to hurt.
Yes,
could I just ask, and then Councillor Kuna, I think, wants to come in as well. So I would like to support what Jan says about the information, and I do think you can add caveats. We do understand about stuff like weather. Could I suggest that it goes onto the council website, because there are lots of different communication channels, and I think it would be really good if it could be put up there. You can always put a caveat in brackets, but it would really help. I'm going to give you one example of just how bad it was. It took me literally 2 hours. I took a photocopy of my parking ticket and a copy of my speedometer, just so it doesn't really prove anything, but the start and the end. It actually took me 2 hours to get from the centre of town, and it took me about 5 minutes to get from the centre of town to Hockley. So the rest of it was from Hockley all the way up Hampstead Hill. It took me 2 whole hours
literally, and I've got the Tuesday of last week. That was actually quite painful in terms of dehydration, wanting to go to the loo, not expecting to be trapped like that. I could have gone to London and got a tube afterwards. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. It can actually be intensely disruptive and personally, eventually quite painful. And there was also some quite outrageous traffic behaviour because people were then driving up the wrong side of the road out of sheer frustration. So that's just could you please follow up on the air pollution? And could I ask that perhaps once a fortnight, or maybe once a week, the council does air quality checks in key spots? Because if my journey took 6 times longer, that would normally take 20 minutes. So if it took 2 hours, that's 6 times longer, one car. You can imagine that the emissions in this area must be enormous now. And I think it would be really good to know that we're not actually, you're not violating some kind of health and safety regulations. Could I also just ask that you do a complete check of the whole system? And of course, I can give you this example and it might be inappropriate because you may have covered it. But last time I got stuck for about an hour getting to Tesco's at Aston from where I live on Hampstead Hill. There was no traffic light control at one stop. There was a pedestrian, the traffic light to allow the pedestrians to cross, which is great. But when you got to the roundabout, there was no control as well. Now, it may be that the flows of traffic are equal from each of the 4 roads, arterial roads going onto that roundabout. But I'd be quite surprised. And I would think that it would vary during the day, depending on whether traffic is going north or south. And I was really surprised to see such a major roundabout with no traffic light control at all. Now, I'm not going to say I'm right or wrong because I don't know really very much about traffic flow, but I slightly have the impression that you need perhaps to increase the resources and be a bit more forensic and a bit more granular about the monitoring. Finally, could you also put the details of this app for traffic circulation in the chat now? And could that also go on the council website? Because that would really, really help. I don't know whether I can make GP appointments, other appointments. We are sort of semi-trapped, literally, apart from early in the morning and late at night. And I think if that app became well known and went on the council's website, we can help manage our way around the current dysfunctionality as well. I'm sorry that's a bit long, but I'm trying to be constructive.
Thank you, ma'am.
Could we allow the speaker to just, I'd really like to hear the answers from the speaker, if that's okay.
Hi, Ms. Wackett. Yes, certainly. I've taken a note of the issues that you've raised and I'll try and do my best to answer them as soon as possible. I'll also, whilst we're on to the next topic, I'll get the links for the appropriate websites and put them in the chat box. And I'll take back your comments to the team to see if we could do better, because it certainly seems like we can.
Thank you.
Can I bring the Jan, then Councillor Connor? We can't hear you, Jan.
You're muted.
Here we go. Sorry, guys. Just before the flyover was actually demolished, there were full traffic lights monitoring the flow at the roundabout at the end of Wellington Road and the Birchfield Road. And then those full traffic lights, they were temporary, were taken down. So as Anne says, there's nothing to enable the traffic from Wellington Road to easily move onto the roundabout. So I don't know why those full traffic lights were removed, but that is something that you could look at very, very quickly. And that would help reduce the backlog from Wellington Road, which is often way back as far as, sometimes as far as the roundabout on Hampstead Hill.
Yeah, I'll certainly look into that. Thank you, Ms. Kimber. Certainly look into that.
Thank you. Can I, Councillor Connor?
Thank you. Dear Letter, I'm sure you can sense the frustration that everyone's feeling as a result of the works. And as councillors, we're getting very angry emails from local residents as well. I fully endorse what's been said by both Jan and Anne in terms of the way forward, and for us to be provided with more information, look at the carbon emissions to get better statistics. So I'm not going to repeat all of that, but I just wanted to say, see, like as someone that's in the local area, what seems to be happening is there's all the traffic come from the A34, the Walsall Road, even like from one stop, all of it, if you think about it, all ends up on the old Walsall Road, and there's a bottleneck there. And obviously with the works that can happen at Birchfield Road, that's going to increase it even more when all that works starts happening. So I think what would be useful is, if you're looking at solutions, is if we had maybe some temporary signs, so people that don't know, not everyone knows that there's works being carried out, and some of them just end up in the traffic jams. If there was some sort of temporary signs to say, if you want to go to this location, here's a diversion to avoid traffic, or if you want to go, so like, you know, something there so we can guide people, disperse the traffic a little bit, so it's managed better, because at the moment everyone's going on their normal journeys, but because of the accumulation, and obviously there's lanes which are closed that I've seen on the old Walsall Road as well that are closed, and I've never seen any works carried out there. So I don't know why they're closed early if they don't need to be closed yet. So maybe a little bit of better management in terms of the way that the highways management is happening, because it is having a really, really big impact on local residents. And as Anne said, how can you even make an appointment at the GP if you don't know whether you can get there in 10 minutes or in an hour and a half? It's really, really difficult. It regularly takes, if you want to go from Handsworth Ward to One Stop now, it regularly takes 45 minutes to an hour. That's what you've got to allow if you want to go to One Stop. And in the past, it was sort of like a 15-minute journey. So it is having a huge impact. And I appreciate the fact that you say that it's temporary, but in the interim, all the local residents here are struggling. So if we could have some sort of be a bit more proactive in terms of thinking, okay, well, how can we disperse this traffic, give people alternative routes, so if they don't need to be in that traffic, they can go via a different route, and look at that. And an update, you could come back to us with an update following all the comments. That would be really, really useful, please. So Councillor Atwell, can we request that Gilletta comes to our next ward meeting to give us an update, please?
Yes, I request if you could come in next meeting, please.
Yeah, certainly. Not a problem. I'll come back with as much information as I can and hopefully try and provide better information.
Thank you. Can we move on? Thank you very much, Yurit. And can we move to the next item, waste and fly tipping? Leslie Williams.
Yes, good afternoon, councillors. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for the invite this afternoon. Update on fly tipping. Firstly, fly tipping at the moment is not a Birmingham problem. It's a countrywide problem. It's a bit of a second pandemic. It is very happening a lot. Sorry, across the city, and it is going up strangely or unfortunately. We are taking steps to alleviate this, and what we've done in street scene is we've brought in another 4 crews just specifically to tackle the dumping. They're going to be put in the main spots of the city where the dumping occurs. So Barr will have 1 vehicle over there. So where we got some of our major hotspots, etc., the crew will be out doing regular collections, getting that dumping in the first instance. What we're also doing in street scene is we're recruiting, and part of our street scene recruitment is enforcement. So we're recruiting a number of enforcement officers to work alongside us, where we've got regular dumping spots or regular dumping issues, and we'll be looking to get some evidence and make some prosecutions. We've changed our term, dare I say, from like waste prevention, and now we are talking of tackling people. So we're taking the really proactive steps to be able to deal with the dumping and the fly tipping. It is, as I say, a bit of an epidemic across the country. In Birmingham are really suffering with it, and it seems to be in the same places. We did take some steps a few months ago now, where we used to have a no dumping sign, We put a no dumping sign up at a regular spot. Unfortunately, I don't think people could actually read past the word dumping, and they never read the word no. So we've stopped putting them signs out now because it actually increases dumping, believe it or not. But we are being a lot more proactive. What we're also doing is we've got some more monies coming in, which we will get shortly as a one-off to try some different ways of tackling some of the tipping, etc., on the streets of Birmingham. And what that will look like is some crews that will be out on the main high streets where we got sacks from the flats above shops, where we might have some HMOs, as we discussed earlier, where there's a problem. And we're going to be looking to get them crews to pick up the sacks again in the first instance, but with the second instance to identify where the problems are and to deal with. And it might be that a given property or some flats above shops need to have some kind of bin storage, or it might be that it's a shopkeeper sticking rubbish out, and we deal with that obviously accordingly. So we're taking all these steps to put things in place to deal with the fly tipping. Across Handsworth ward, the miscollections and complaints we get for bins not being collected are quite low in comparison to some of the parts of Birmingham. That's attributable to a number of things. Since last November, we've had a number of new vehicles come into the city, and we started off by bringing in the recycling trucks, which came in just over and just through into the new year, and we just took delivery now of another number of trucks, which are the residual type trucks, which pick up your normal bin. And what we've done with this fleet when we bought them, we bought a narrow body truck, so it's not quite as wide. Probably to the naked eye, you wouldn't probably notice, but they've got a better turning circle. They're able to get tighter places, and we're definitely seeing some improvement in some of our regular spots where we can't get in by using these smaller trucks. We also in January, February, and March, we've replaced our fleet of the small mechanical sweepers. So we've got about 25 of them across the city, and you may have seen them about sweeping the pavements generally. They are now out. I think there was about 8 at the Penny Bar depot, and they're all brand new, all singing, all dancing, completely compliant with the clean air zone, etc. And they're doing a good job. Being the new vehicles, obviously they do a better job. And with some of our older large mechanical fleets, we're in the process of procuring new vehicles, but we took some steps to hire some in. So some of our old stuff have been mothballed, dare I say, and we got some hired vehicles just while we're in the transition of purchasing. There is some other monies that have come into the city as well. So we got some bulky waste service we run. We've increased that to by double to 4 crews, so we can get to people that request a bulky waste collection. We can get to them quicker, so there's a less waiting time. And we've also brought in a number of crews to tackle the graffiti across the city. And again, there will be a graffiti team now based at the Penny Bar depot. So anything that happens, as soon as it happens, we can get it and get it cleaned up. Obviously, we work on intel from what people call into the call centre and tell us. But if anybody sees anything, please let us know, because we can act quite quickly now. There is a short wait for the vehicles because they are a specialist vehicle, and we look to be getting them through August, September. You probably know that part of the Penny Bar regeneration, as discussed, Penny Bar depot itself is being regenerated. We are due to start work there towards the end of this month into early August, hopefully July. And the build will take approximately 18 months. They're knocking the whole lot down from the gates to the back gate type of thing. We'll have in place a brand new 21st century transfer depot where all the waste is kept and moved around under cover, nothing in the open. That doesn't go without much problems for the depot. It shouldn't, or we don't expect it to make any problems for collections. We will still keep to all the collections, and the waste, some parts of the waste will go out to different parts. So we've got a place down in Bromford where the green waste is collected will be transferred to, rather than Penny Bar. And the paper, we're just working on it, will probably go to the paper mill direct rather than via the depot. all of the services will tip there. Around about 12 weeks into the build, the main part of the depot, as in the refuse collection, recycling and the trade work, that will all be moving to a separate site to allow for the main build to go on, where they knock down the big concrete structure in the middle. It has to be done because, sorry, we have to move them out because we've got so many vehicles, we just haven't got the space. So we've identified a place to put them, and they will only be out for as long as that part of the build takes place, but it is around 9 to 10 months as I understand it. So just a brief update. I'm conscious of the time of the meeting and that, but if anybody's got any questions, I'm more than happy to take them.
Come in quickly. I'll be very brief.
Sorry,
it's Councillor Kuna.
Oh, sorry, Councillor, yes.
So, hi, Leslie. Can I just ask, so are you taking over from Justin because, or are you in addition to the team?
I'm Justin's manager.
Are you Justin's manager?
Yes, so sorry, I probably should have said at the start of the meeting. My name's Les Williams. I'm the manager for the north of the city. So I look after Barr, the central belt of the city, and I also look after our workshops, and I also look after Cresley Waste closed sites. So
okay.
Justin can't be here today. He's had a well-earned 2 weeks of rest. He's been working very hard for the last 15 months, so he deserves to put his feet up.
I'm sure he's a very hard worker. Always been brilliant in terms of responding to queries. Can I just say, so earlier on I spoke to the police about having a joint approach to some of the issues that we're having with fly tipping, etc. in the ward. Would you be the right person then to attend the meeting with myself, Councillor Atwell, and also the police and Amanda from Community Safety? Because I've been told that there are some cameras that can be used for enforcement if there's hotspot areas for fly tipping. Is that something that we can look at?
Yes, definitely invite me to that, Councillor, and Justin, because Justin he will be more aware than me, obviously, of these some of these issues we have. What's coming with the enforcement is some cameras. So where we've had a few in the past, I'm going to say we'll have access to a lot more. I'm not saying hundreds, obviously, but when we identify a place, and in that meeting, if we identify the corner of a road, if we need to do, we'll get the camera up and we will be prosecuting. It's not a catch and a slap on the wrist. We are going, it's not engage, educate now, it's engage and enforce. That's where we are. So as a service, so we're more than changed our tact on the way we work. So we want to let people know that fly tipping, it's not nice. It's not what we expect from people. And if you do it and we catch you, we will prosecute. So please invite me, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Before I take the other guests, into the question, I know it is a very burning issue. I like to just raise a couple of things with Justin. Through to the email, I had a conversation. Quite a few emails we exchanged, and there was a two at the present, one on a Beecham Avenue, the other one Eckford Road. There is some of the, I don't know what is happening. Sometimes the picture gone off from my computer. Anyway, there is some clothing vans. Some people privately did it. I ranked them, one people, the person on Eckford Road who's responsible to put these clothing vans. These are both, even Beecham Avenue, these are on a private land. My understanding, the private land owner, they charging the money for the clothing vans. And I request the Justin, can we somehow remove these vans? Because by the van, lot of people, they putting, the black background there or their old furniture, so and so. And yes, if we can get removed, but I mean, whole of our Handsworth wood. And on the corner of Everest Road and the Cooper Road, there was somehow some local people moved this. I don't know how they did it and who did it, but that's good thing they did it. But we like to get this removed. Why? do they have any permission from the council or the planning to install these, or they put some clothing bins there? I know the people collecting the clothes and for their business, for their money. And the owner, they're getting bit of money, not without any money they're doing, because I spoken to both of the shop owners. And I think we need to remove these old things. And let me take some the other the guest and and then I have some issues where the waste bin was on Hampstead Hill and Cherry Orchard Road and by the bus stop. There used to be bins, and these has been removed and not been replaced. And I'll talk to you later after let me have the guest in. Can I have a Jane Kimber first, then the other? Please forgive me, I don't know the sequence of who put the hand first.
Okay.
And I can see Nina as well. Let me have a Jane, then Nina.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor. Les, it's good to meet you. And you've if you're starting off by talking to Handsworth Woodward, you're in a good place. What I think we're really keen to do from the Residents Association and other community groups and activists is really try and work with Fleet and Waste Management. We are really pleased that there's a lot of extra money going into enforcement locally and across the city. But you'll never have enough resources to really do this yourselves. What you need is to work with people like ourselves, to be the eyes and the ears and those kind of things, and to work in partnership to feed information through to you, but also feed information back to the community. And we're desperate to play a role with you guys. And Councillor Kuna, the Residents Association would love to be part of a partnership between the council and the police to really try and turn things round in our ward. And the offers there, Les. You've got a lot of people on this call. We've got our own networks as well. You don't have to be doing this on your own. And I can really see that in 12 months' time we could have turned this thing round if we work together. But if it's just 4 more officers or 3 more officers or something like that at Holford Drive, you ain't going to make a difference. You might take some actions, but you ain't going to make a big difference. But working with us, we can do it together.
Well, thanks for that, Jan. You are singing my tune, and that's where I want to go with things, because I think what is key to making change and to getting things better is to engage with the public and the people that see the things that go on. So I'm more than happy is probably the wrong term. I'm ecstatic that we want to do that. And I will say that Justin and the team there are more than keen to. Things that we are probably not good at is singing when we do things good and do it well. We only ever seem to be told when we don't do it well. There is another initiative within the city, and it's called Love Your Streets, and you may have heard that. Now, Love Your Streets, the initiative there, it's not a big team of people, but they will go out and tackle the issues, but they're not given like us to on the highway. So if you've got a park, for example, or some HMOs where there's a problem, the Love Your Streets people can engage, and they're linked to the police, the councillors, everybody, the Environment Agency, everybody they're linked to. And if people want to take part in their area and do the right thing, they are a catalyst to get in. And I think what I do, councillors, I'll send you the links to that, because what comes with that, I live in South Yardley, which is not a million miles from yourselves, and I'm linked into where I live locally as the South Yardley Litter Champions. And what we can do, we go out litter picking, we identify spots on that. We've identified a spot that's a real gut spot. People just dump on it, and we're taking steps to put a flower bed in to improve it so people stop dumping. We're doing things like that as a group, and I'm sure that the Handsworth group, you guys, that's the kind of things you want to do. So I'm more than happy, and I think, again, I'm more than happy that outside of this meeting, if we want to hold a separate meeting where we just talk about the things we can do together, working with yourselves, waste, perhaps the police. Our department has changed a little bit in as much as we're not called waste management anymore. We're part of a new directorate called City Operations. And City Operations is good for us, as I see it, because Our department now is street cleansing, it is parks, it is highways, part of the highways that come and do your drains or clear your roads, your bits of tarmac that need doing and that. And what we're trying to do is build into a working partnership that we might go to a road or a given number of roads on a day, clean it, empty the drains, get all the cars moved, repair the bits of tarmac, get everybody involved to come out and get involved with that. So when we go away, we leave a clean road behind that we can then maintain. And people like yourselves are the ones that help us do that, because you can spread the word within the local community. But that's where we want to go. And I think, again, a separate meeting so we can explain that to yourselves and the councillors, I think it's well worth having.
Thank you.
Nina, then John Terrell.
Hi, Leslie. Yes, we have a lot of problem with, rubbish in our area. And it's good to know that you're going to have enforcement team. We are part of the litter picking group as well. We do every Saturday morning for an hour around our area. The issue is that when you actually report, rubbish, fly tipping, the first thing comes up is even we've actually helped people to put some cameras themselves up, but because we can't get the number plates, or still we need some more proof, we've been told by your department. Will somebody give a statement? Will somebody do this? And sometimes that puts people off. They don't want to get so much involved in that situation. They're happy to report, they're happy to give you the evidence, but they don't want to go any further than that. Mm-hmm. And that's where the blockage is at the moment. And the other issue is that where your policies clearly says that people shouldn't be obstructing with their bins in the area. I know I've reported so many people putting their bins in the middle of the road to stop other people parking. When I send an email out to the waste section, what I get back is, oh, we can't do that at the moment because we're just looking at our policies. So again, there's another blockage there. However, when you're talking about pavement cleaning, if the people are parking their cars on pavement, how do your department manage to clean the pavements? Because during autumn again, we're going to get some leaf falling, and that's a big major thing. Well, that's not being cleaned, and you can report those. So those are the issues that I'm coming across, and we keep reporting them, and we keep coming up with a blockage. Yes, we've got cameras, and maybe you can put cameras on, and we are very active in our area at the moment by reporting them and doing the work ourselves. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Nina. If I could just, excuse me, but just give you a couple of points back on that. I'll go in reverse order if that's okay. Now, leaf fall. I think we all know that in the autumn all the leaves fall out the trees. We've had that problem since Birmingham was built, and probably a lot long before it was. Last year we were lucky enough to attain some extra cash, and that extra cash looked like us getting some extra crews in to clear the leaves. I will say last year we cleaned them in record time. And we're hoping, we're expecting to get the money again to do it this year. So leaf fall, we have to triage it. We have to go for the worst roads first, obviously, and the broad leaves like the chestnut trees and that usually first to drop, and the hardwood trees like oak are usually last to drop. So it might seem that we're a bit mismatched the way we do it, but it's a cunning plan that the local managers have, and they triage the work to get it done. I do know there's a blockage with people that they see something, they see someone dumping, and they might have it on the camera. But when we catch someone dumping, we have to treat it like a crime scene. So if we get some black bags and we go through and get an address, it's not admissible in court. It's got to be seen by an enforcement officer, or it's got to be backed up by someone potentially having to attend court. That's why we've took the step of bringing more enforcement in, so we can not flood it, but be able to tackle where we've got them issues. Because me as a resident, if my neighbour was doing it, I personally wouldn't be, but would I be reluctant to stand up in court against my neighbour? And people don't like to do that because of fear of reprisals. So that's why we're putting stuff in place so people don't have to do that. If they give us the intel and it's a continual thing, yes, you've told us, No, we won't do nothing about it, but we will monitor, and then we will catch them. And if it means we put a camera up to catch them, we will. And as stated earlier, we will prosecute now. So we do need that intel because it's the local residents that see it, but you shouldn't be scared of reprisals. We're going to take that away from everybody. We're going to, deal with it ourselves, but we still need that intel. And cameras, if people are going and want to submit the evidence, I will say in every instance we will deal with it. Because my doorbell on the front's got a camera on it, I would use it if I had to. I live on a corner and someone dumps down the side of my house. It's just a fence. I went through my camera, I found who it was, and we prosecuted the guy. Cost him about £7,000. So it's just being willing to do it, I guess. But I do hear the pain, and we're trying to unblock them blockages. And I want to give you some comfort or reassurances. That's what we're doing now. We're changing our tack to engage and enforce, not engage and educate. Hopefully that answers your queries.
We're running out of the time. Can I bring John Terrell, then last speaker on this item, Councillor Cooner? Then I have to make some comment.
Yes, thank you. I've just found out about Holford Drive and hadn't heard about it before. It's good news that it's being rejigged, but I mean, just at this time, it struck people when we were talking about this at a residents' association meeting. People were very concerned about, because we take, we can take our rubbish in our cars to there. Is there any place we can go? I mean, the nearest place would be Sutton. I think, would it not be a good idea to think about opening somewhere else temporarily while this work is going on? It seems really strange to me that just at this time, when the Commonwealth Games are opening up just in this area, I would expect, I mean, I was a cabinet member for transportation and street services, so I'm a bit familiar with this. But I mean, what are people going to be able to do? We need to give people, first of all, not picking up bits and pieces from over the place. I mean, I heard something else about the waste services being changed and rejigged in the area. It was a message from a neighbour, and it seemed to come from the city council, but I've heard nothing further about this. So first of all, I would expect, if Holford Drive is going to be closed down, you're going to get a lot of extra fly tipping around Perry Barr just at the time that the Commonwealth Games are coming here. It doesn't sound to me, it's not, well, not just me, but for other residents, that they're perplexed that we haven't got any alternatives clear to us. We don't know that it's closing in the first place. It's being done up, which is welcome, but what can we do about it?
Yeah, thanks for that, John. There's a couple of answers I'd have for that. Firstly, the site itself for your waste that we pick up, that's not changing. Your waste will still go there. So we're keeping the operation running, so far as we can. We're just making some changes. Unfortunately, obviously, a build of this size, and it runs into many millions of pounds, we have to get as much space as we can. And the north of the city, it does actually have more public waste sites than the south of the city, as an example. So, you've got Ryland Road, you've got Castle Bromwich, etc. And you can still go over to Tyres, dare I say it. But what we did when we went into the pandemic is, firstly, we took the step of closing because we didn't know. But when we did open back up, we did on a booking system. So if you want to take some waste to a site now, you ring up and you book a slot. So it's fluid. It's fluid. So if you're booked in at 1:15, you're back out by 20 past. You're not waiting in a queue.
Yeah, I know.
But unfortunately, at the depot, we had to take a step because of just literally lack of room, that we've had to close the CA site or the public waste site while we do that build. And what we do put in after is a split level. Again, 21st century public waste sites that will be a lot better than what's there now, dare I say it. But the only thing I can say is that we have to have a bit of pain for a lot again, and you know it's difficult to know, but that's what we've had to do. We did look at if we could get some other sites, but you probably appreciate the whole of Pettybar and the surrounding area is going through so much regeneration. Firstly, there's nowhere we could find, and secondly, there's nowhere we could now, if that's a term to use.
Well, that's welcome, but I mean, he just said that it was being closed, so it was just assumed. I just assumed that
Okay.
facility would be available.
Can a gentleman please last because running out of that time, we've got a still item. Councillor Connor, are you still you raise your hand or?
In the interest of time, I'll contact Leslie out of the meeting.
Pardon?
I'll just contact Leslie out of the meeting, so you carry on to the next item, because we're running short on time. So I'll contact Leslie.
Okay. Before I move to the next item, I'd like to make a request to the officer, please, if you look into this, especially where the bus routes are, which is the Handsworth Wood Road and Old Bolsall Road and the Hampstead Hill, especially by the bus stop, there is a urgently need, the waste collection, the small pot, we can put the bins in. Otherwise, the people, they're using the bus stop, whatever they have, they just leave it there. Used to be there, they've been removed, not been installed back. But I will make on a location plan, some, email you with this or where the needs are. That's where I can identify the site and email to you on a location plan.
If you could do that, Councillor, that'd me trying to write them down, but we'll definitely get to have a look. Obviously, around bus stops and certain areas, 100 yards from the chip shop type of thing, that's where we know we get a problem. So we did do a rationalisation of bins, but they should be where they're needed. So send me the details. And
is it possibility either you or one of your officer can meet me on a site, please? I can show you now.
Yes. You
send
us your diary
with the date and time. I will confirm it. We will meet it. Okay, I will show you now and see where the possibility we can do it. Thank you very much for your time. And now let us move to the next item, which is the Commonwealth Games volunteering. I think it's Laura Easton.
Yeah, that's correct. Hi there, everyone. Thank you very much for having me here, and yeah, just conscious of time, so I'll just keep it brief, but hopefully be able to send out some information more on the volunteer project. So my name is Laura Easton. I work for the organising committee of the Birmingham Commonwealth Games. I'm responsible for the recruitment and selection of over 13,000 Games Time volunteers to be part of our Commonwealth Collective. We are recruiting for these volunteers now, so the applications are open throughout June and July and the beginning of August. And what we really want is to have local people involved. We want to ensure that people throughout Birmingham, throughout every single area, knows about the opportunities and has the opportunity to apply. The volunteering programme, I can send out more information on how you apply online through our website, some of the things that people can expect and ways that we can support people through the application. But I suppose my ask from you is to, if there's any groups or organisations or networks that you have that we could either come and present at and give more information. If you have email networks that we could send some information out to, we'd be very happy to provide you with all that information. The volunteers will really be at the heart of the Games. Some of you might have been involved in previous big events that have happened throughout the country, but they really are the face of the Games, and we want people who represent Birmingham to be the face of the Games and welcome the world to Birmingham and the West Midlands. So like I say, we would very much like to engage with as many groups or organisations as possible, send out the information to get people applying. The application is online. It takes about 15 minutes to complete. There are a number of different roles that people can be involved in, whether it's the sport itself, whether it's based at the Athlete Village, the city centre, some of our live cultural sites. You don't have to have experience, you don't have to have volunteered before. We can train and support everybody and being able to do the role that we're asking them to do. So sorry, I've kind of rushed through that. It's just to raise awareness of the volunteer programme. More than happy to come and speak to any groups at any time of day or evening to give more information if you think it would be beneficial. And happy to take any questions.
Any other question, please? Any question?
I'll put the website in the chat just now.
If not, before we move to the other, I just want to declare I sit on the Commonwealth Games Committee. And yes, if any question somebody else have to raise, if not, and the next meeting we can, if anybody have a question, then we will discuss this. I think, and you want to say something on
are we on any other urgent business yet?
No, not yet.
Okay, I'll wait for that then.
Okay. Is there any question to Laura, please? Anybody? No. If not, we move to the any urgent business. Jason?
Well, we're really pleased, I'm sure, that we're going to have exempt accommodation on the agenda next time. I have made you aware, but I'd just like to do this through the meeting as well, that the Handsworth Wood Residents Association would like to have an item on local plans. We don't actually have a full local plan yet, although we have contributed. And our understanding is that these local plans will become much more crucial in terms of planning decisions, because planning decisions will have regard to whether proposals are aligned to local plans. So clearly we do need to move forward on local plans. If you could agree that as an agenda item for next time, that would be great. And secondly, following on from the Commonwealth Games, we'd like an item on the funding bids so that we understand what other residents groups are putting in. We haven't yet decided whether to make a bid ourselves, but obviously knowing what's going on elsewhere in the community would be good. And the third thing is, and I think it's been really obvious from this meeting, which has been a working meeting really, that we'd like a full schedule of future dates, because what we're doing really is picking up issues and then needing to monitor the progress and follow things through. And that really can't happen unless we have a clear timetable. So I would suggest that we can at least go through to the new financial year. That would be a very reasonable suggestion. And I personally think we need to have the monthly, given the crisis with exempt accommodation, given all the other things that we've discussed, and with the Commonwealth Games looming, I don't think monthly is unreasonable, but I would think bi-monthly would be the absolute minimum. So on those requests, local plans, Commonwealth Games funding and future schedule of meetings, if you could possibly respond before we close the meeting, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
John Omida, please. John, can you unmute, please?
Just one thing to add to Anne's list of issues. A couple of times now, the issue has come about Section 106 funding. And there was a recent community discussion really in the Handsworth ward about the use of Section 106 funding. Substantial funds available under that heading. And it seems we really should have that discussion in Handsworth Wood ward as to what the priorities for that funding should be. So just requesting that be on the next agenda as well.
Is any other urgent, somebody want to urgent business, please? I think Councillor Cooner raised the hand. Councillor Cooner.
Just in response to John's comment, really. My understanding is that the Section 106 funding, what normally happens is, depending on what the build was when the Section 106 funding was allocated, and there is an agreement as to what any Section 106 funding can be used for. So it's not openly available to use for whatever you want. So there's usually, when there's an application for planning, there would be criteria as to what Section 106 funding could be used for, that's allocated to that particular planning application. So it's not a case of that we can identify our priorities and use the Section 106 funding there. The Section 106 funding has to meet the criteria that it was allocated for. That's my understanding. And that's how it's always worked in the past, unless it's changed, and I'm not aware of it.
Yes, I think that the exercise in Handsworth illustrated that clearly there are limitations on what it can be used for. It has to be to replace some amenity that has been lost as a result of the particular development. But within that discussion, there's scope for deciding, well, what should the emphasis of that be? How should we replace that amenity? And I know historically it hasn't been a matter of public debate, but given the nature of it, it surely should be.
Yeah, so I mean, just as an example, John, so there was an application for the loss of the tennis courts in Butlers Road. And obviously, because it was a loss of a facility, there was going to be a loss of a facility if it was approved in our ward. I was quite keen that any replacement should remain in our ward. There was a proposal by the applicant and by some officers to take it across to Handsworth ward, or actually it was Lizell's ward, it wasn't even Handsworth ward. So again, we can make our case as to what we feel should happen with the Section 106, but the ultimate decision lies with the planning committee when it goes to planning, whether they're going to, and the planning officer that's doing the report, whether they're going to take on board what we're saying as councillors, and also what they decide that they're going to recommend for the Section 106 funding. So it's not entirely in our hand as councillors.
Yes, that's fine. All I'm saying is that we want to be part of the discussion. It shouldn't be just councillors being part of that discussion. I can understand it's a planning decision ultimately, but the residents should have an opportunity to say what their priorities are. So at least the planning department know that before they make their decision.
Yeah, so residents, when there's an application, residents are equally able to put forward their views in terms of where any Section 106 funding that's generated can be spent. So you do have an opportunity to feed into that at that point, my understanding is.
Please, can I
help? Can I help, councillors?
Jan, I'm coming to you, please. Jan.
I was just going to cover this point and try and help you through this
yes, Jan.
Okay, it's a chicken and egg situation. There has always been a process where there's an aspirational list of projects that might get funded by Section 106 in the future, as well as actually retrospectively monitoring whether 106 money that should have come into the council is actually used on certain things. So Councillor Kuna, there is definitely the opportunity for the community to be involved to help highlight things. But we also need to be realistic about, ward boundaries are even smaller now than they ever used to be. So just saying, let's keep the money within our ward, whichever our ward might be, doesn't necessarily get the best result. So local community.
We want to use your expertise in the area. You got expertise.
Yeah.
We are running out of the time, please.
Okay, that's what I was just explaining, that there's definitely a role to follow up from what John said about using residents' knowledge and priorities to help shape a Section 106 plan for the ward. And I'd support John on this and happy to help if that would be useful.
Thank you, Jen. Before I go, I like to say, I think the Anne raised something on planning. Not a particular application, just general, because I'm having a lot of phone calls or messages, email. Some people they are just the professional campaigner doing this. If anybody apply, wherever it is, I'm talking about Handsworth board. If somebody apply for an extension or anything for the planning, as long as they are meeting the rules and regulation, planning committee have to decide, not we as a councillor. So everybody have an opportunity. They have their fundamental right to apply for the application if they want to. This is up to the planning officer and the planning committee, either they approved or not. And the local people or the neighbor, they have a full right to make an objection. Either their objection is valid or not, it is up to the committee to listen. So please, there is so many things confusing. Some people want the planning. Maybe some people, they say, no, they shouldn't have an extension to the house. It is up to the planning committee to approve. And so one thing lastly, on Eckfold Road, there was a planning for the, I think, telephone mast or something about 15-20 meter high. And the local people approach us and we support them jointly, myself and Councillor Cooner. It has been refused. So that's where we work hard. And thanks for Councillor Cooner to supporting this. We both work together there. And that's the news, so that's wherever, either HMOs, and we are objecting wherever. So thanks for everybody who are, just, feed up, where the HMOs are and where is a need to be support, we will support there. And thank you very much. In case
sorry, Councillor Atwell, can I just come back? I think Annie is referring to local planning policies. So, like for example, yeah. So I'm quite happy for us to look at that to see how we want our area to be sort of like basically had developed. So I think that's a good idea. That's part of the devolution plan that we
okay.
Together.
I agree with it, because my concern was some people keep just sending me the messages. I'm saying yes, we local, but the local people are saying not for one person, not individual, local plan or the local community talking about. We will support the local community as we did some others. We know that. Anyway, thank you very much. I'm sorry if I couldn't get somebody, the time into it.
Well, could you answer Anne left some proposals for you to answer?
They're not personal to me. I'm actually, the Handsworth Hood Residents Association are asking, thank you very much, Councillor Cooner, and I'm really glad that you're referring to the devolution agenda, because that's what this is about. It's about neighbourhood planning. So that's great if that can be on the agenda, and perhaps if we can work with you before the next meeting, that's great.
Okay.
I also think, could you please not, just ghostlighters, could you please also answer the question, could we have the Commonwealth Games funding bids on the next Handsworth Ward agenda? This is a perfectly reasonable request and we shouldn't have to struggle for an answer. And finally, it's perfectly reasonable to ask for a future schedule of meetings. We want to engage with you, we want to work with you, and to do that, we need to know that we can meet you reasonably regularly. So if you could please answer those two questions before just ending the meeting, that would be so much appreciated.
Let me answer, Anne. Yes, I agreed. We will have that meeting on agenda for Commonwealth Games funding, and the meeting that we already scheduled properly is done. I will ask the Leslie if you can circulate all the meeting taking place in this financial year. So the meeting has already been set up and you will receive the circulation from an officer. Okay. So I think we are already taken on a board. The meeting will carried out according to whatever the dates are. And that Commonwealth Games, we will have every meeting, we will take it on a board, an agenda to discuss.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for everybody. Sorry if I hurt anybody. I didn't mean it, but I mean, just sometimes it's very hard you can't divide much time, to each other.
Can I just say, we'll also try to get from the exempt accommodation department as well, an officer to come and give us an update in terms of what's going on at the next meeting. We did try to get them to this meeting. Unfortunately, we weren't successful. The cabinet member did also respond to our query to say, look, can we get someone to our ward committee? But unfortunately, it looks like an officer wasn't able to attend. So we will add that to our next agenda item. So that's not a problem either. So like Councillor Atwell said, we've already scheduled meetings and we'll get Leslie to share those dates with you.
Thank you very much. We are just 4 o'clock now. We end of the meeting. Thank you very much. Thanks. See you in next meeting. Bye.